Mark, what are you reading?
Super Son. I'm trying to see if John Kent's scars are all internal or if there's any left on the outside.
Or maybe a little bit of both. We'll find out right after this. Before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. It's right down there. It's a little thumbs up. Hit the like button. Leave us a comment. And don't forget the notification bell so you're alerted whenever we upload new content. We are truly now almost at the end of Absolute Power. But we've got some things to wrap up for us before we get there, including the fate of our favorite super son, Jonathan Kent. So that's kind of a
He's
good
an only
place.
child.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, he is. And unfortunately, that's not going to change as that part of absolute power. So,
Nope.
but yeah, let's start there. We started on Themyscira, and Jonathan says, "Hey, you know what? I'm good," and the Amazons are like, "Maybe not."
Yeah, so it picks up where the last issue left off with him getting cleansed of the cybernetic enhancements that Amanda Waller put on him, and the Amazonians using their Amazonian technology to inspect him physically. On the outside, he's saying he's fine, he looks fine, but they know better after what he's just been through. So they're hooking him up to machines and running tests on him and diving deep into his psyche, basically.
Yeah, because I mean, as anyone who knows that, I mean, you mentioned it at the top, is scars are not only external; there are internal ones as well, and especially because of the Brainiac Queen, they really want to make sure exactly how deep did Brainiac Queen go into his subconscious and into his psyche. So they hook him up. It starts off with basically we go right back to where Batman is using his sonic machine to clear out all of the external hardware. And then we see the first thing he sees Dreamer and Robin, who is Damien as his driver in a stretch limo.
Yeah, it goes in there just having kind of like a random talk, trying to understand how Dreamer's even there, what's going on. And they're kind of just having a conversation of being awake or asleep or what's real and not real. And he finds out that he's pretty much living in a nightmare inside of his own head where he still has these thoughts, these invasive thoughts of himself still in cybernetic mode. And John Tim's art is phenomenal. I wish this guy would just stay on Superman.
Yeah, yeah. He launched the Jonathan Kent series. He was so good on that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yeah, and so we see Jonathan basically, like you said, having these different discussions with Dreamer, trying to figure out still in his mind, what is real, what is not. He's seeing things that he thinks aren't going to be real, but you don't really know. He basically ends up having a fight and has a grenade stuck in his mouth because they don't believe that he's been healed yet. They're still fighting him as a cybernetic organ, and so he basically gets blown up. But the battle still continues.
Yeah, and we get to see some of the stuff in these flashbacks and these dream sequences that are actually memories of what he was doing for Amanda Waller that wasn't necessarily showcased in as much detail during the main event. As far as like rounding up heroes, you get a little showcase of him grabbing up Amazons or knocking out Sandman. And he does let us readers know that while these things he did are heartbreaking to him, to see how he treated his colleagues and friends, he's grateful that he didn't actually kill anybody. So that was good that they actually took the time to confirm that as well. And he unhooks and he wants to get up and get out of the chair. These memories are just doing too much, and he goes and takes off and he takes off to an Amazonian treatment session beta 2, where
Yeah, no, yeah, where he basically finds another person, the drummer boy, is, which it's not even Christmas, but
no, it's not.
he ends up facing the drummer boy, who he defeats, relatively quickly. Um, and as he's doing that, he then comes face to face with the Brainiac Queen, who I think looks remarkably like Arachna from Transformers One, to me.
Oh, it does, doesn't it? Sure,
Yeah,
fucking does.
yeah. Um, we'll talk about that on a week's end, or we did talk about it last night on
Last night, and
that week's end.
time is
Um,
relative.
Exactly. So he has then this physical battle with in his mind with the Brainiac Queen, and all the while he is basically he's lying on his on this bed. Tubes are in him. The Amazons are trying to hold him down because he's obviously thrashing around because he's having a battle in his subconsciousness with the Brainiac Queen, and basically Dreamer then comes helps Jonathan defeat the Brainiac Queen, and that's where we are. And then suddenly he is transported back to Earth.
They're back to Themyscira. It's almost like he
That's
wakes
right.
up
Yeah,
there. Yeah, I mean that is on Earth,
yeah.
and he's getting a message from Jay. Jay, was it Nakamura? What is Jay's
Jay
last name?
Nakamura. Yep.
Yep, Jay Nakamura, and they're having a conversation. They haven't seen each other since before all of this took off, and he's kind of nervous to see Jay. Jay lost his mom at the beginning of this, and they're getting ready to meet. And in the process of talking back and forth with Jay, he's still trying to make sure that he has gotten this Brainiac Queen out of his consciousness. He's pretty much confirmed it's there by now. And we cut back into his consciousness where Brainiac Queen keeps finding him and all these different fights and all these different things that he's seeing in his subconscious keeps arriving. And thought he was in this safe place amongst friends. And Brainiac Queen comes for the full assault on his consciousness while around friends, just basically doing the whole old school villain, just accept it, let me take you over kind of thing. And Dreamer sitting here helping him try to come to terms with this subconscious and help fight it.
Right, and this is her last major Brainiac Queen's last major assault on Jonathan Kent's subconscious, and it's artistically in the comic a very interesting choice because there are four double page spreads that happen right in a row that have to do with this battle. And there are shattered glass and windows panes everywhere that kind of shows the battle until finally he defeats the Brainiac Queen and he is finally free of her. At least as far as we know, he is free of her, and he has one final moment with Dreamer, who basically
presumed dead at the moment.
exactly right. And so then he goes back and he finds Jay. Jay is now there as well. Tells hey, you know what? I got some bad news. Dreamer is dead. And what does Jay say? But good. And he's like, you can't mean that.
Yeah, Jay blames Dreamer for the death of his mom. John's like, we got to be better than this. Jay's and him got a little bit of looking at the whole situation a little differently, and there's work to do, and they'll figure it out when everything's not so crazy.
Right. Jonathan says he has to go off to the plan. Apparently, is for them to move to San Francisco as part of what they're going to do. But just as Jonathan is about to fly off to join Nightwing and his group, because Nightwing says, "Hey, we've already lost some valuable time just trying to make sure that you're a whole person again." Just as he's about to fly off, Jay grabs his hand and says, basically, we'll figure it out together. And that's kind of where the issue ends. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
So that's the Super Son. Let's not talk about the Superman. Yeah, exactly. Good news and bad news. Bad news is this is the last Jamal Campbell issue. Good news is we got a couple of good things coming up in the next issue that we'll talk about once we get to the end of this. So
heck yeah, we do.
Yeah.
This is such a beautiful issue. I do want to say Jamal Campbell, perfect for Superman. And this one kind of touches on a little bit of where we've been, but it's good to get details, kind of like with the John Kent one. We know that Superman and Zatanna have set out to find what's called the Dark Roads, which is a way for them to travel in the world without Amanda Waller catching up with them, taking them on, but it requires access to magic, which Superman's not a fan of, and Zatanna doesn't have any of when we dive into this story.
Right. If you remember at the end of the last issue, they basically came face to face with Neron, who offered them a deal. And we find out what the deal is. It's funny how he says, I'm not telling my soul to you. And he's like, yeah, well, I couldn't have your soul anyway because it's too pure, basically.
He says, plus you'll never die. I can't cash it.
Right.
In.
And he's like, I've died twice. He goes, yeah, but you're right here.
Yeah, but you're right. Here. Right. I'm like, dude, that was so clever.
Right. So Nero's basically what he wants one thing from him. He wants him to lie. Okay. Now, basically, Clark, Superman says, yeah, okay, I'll do that, which he considers to be his one lie. I'm guessing that lie is going to come back to haunt him somewhere down the road.
Zatanna freaked out. She's like, don't do it. He's like, it's fine. I'll lie for you. And he took the map. telling
Right.
Zatanna that was the lie. Ain't no way. Neuron
Yeah.
was super happy to let him walk off with it. Felt like he made a good deal, and they are off with the maps to traverse the dark roads.
Exactly. The map of Mordru.
Map
Um,
of Mordru.
right. We switched to Lois, who now is wearing the super suit. She is Superwoman. We found out in the solicitations from DC that she'll be getting her own special come December, a Superwoman special. So she basically is there. Lex is still basically like a
Vegetable.
yeah. He's like
He's
he's like
worthless.
he's like Lex that has been spayed.
Yeah,
Um,
he's got no memory of anything. Wish he could help. You have her flying toward the Fortress of Solitude, Mercy, Jimmy, and
right.
Lex flying behind, and with a couple other people. Was it Livewire that's with him? Silver
Hmm.
Banshee, who's with him?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Silver Banshee, I believe, is that's Jimmy's girlfriend.
yeah, so
Is with them
the
as well.
ragtags are following along behind Lois. They're trying to catch up with Superman and the gang, and they get to the fortress, and it's
It's a big
absolutely in
hole.
shambles. Yeah,
It's
big
a
hole.
crater.
Like, oh my gosh, what is
Right.
this? What
Right.
happened? But then we cut over to the dark roads.
Right. The dark roads that Clark and Zatanna are traversing, and they're talking about magic. And he's basically saying, Clark hates magic, and she's like, "Why do you hate magic? Because of the cost." And he's, basically, it's a little bit more than that than just the cost.
Yeah, and they're talking about that as she's being affected by
Mhm.
using the map through the dark roads. It's costing her life force just to be able to read this map and traverse these roads. And Superman's wanting to help take some of the burden off of her. And she's talking about how she feels worthless without her magic. And they make it through the dark roads to a location we haven't seen since what, Dark Crisis?
Yeah. Yeah.
The Hall of Heroes, the
Exactly.
ragtag destroyed Hall of Heroes. It's in the void, in the space between multiverses, and none other than Doctor Light, a beat up, worn down Doctor Light, is in there, and they're kind of catching up on what's going on and what Amanda Waller might be up to when they get attacked by somebody we also haven't seen since Dark Crisis issue 7, the very last panel, very last page. It's the Earth 3 fusion character, and
Right.
we get a proper name for the character, Confusion.
Right. Who also was in World's Finest as well. Right. That
Fusion was.
Fusion was right. Sorry. Yes, you're right. Sorry. So they start battling him. Doctor Light tries to assist. Is not very successful. She basically says that the confusion says, don't worry. Waller left orders for you to come with me. They've decided, that that's just not going to happen. They continue to fight back. They end up defeating Confusion. Um, and then we switched back to the Fortress of Solitude with Lois and the group.
Yeah, where they're just trying to catch up and figure out what's going on. In the midst of their conversation, they notice some shadows and some shadows expanding, and they're getting ready to attack these shadows when the shadows take the form of what she feels is a very familiar figure. And she reaches out and she puts her hand on the shadow's hand and reaches into it and pulls out none other than Superman himself. So we get to see how they actually successfully traversed the dark roads and came out the other side. Because in the last issue of Absolute Power, which we covered here, that's how Superman kind of shows up to the
Mhm.
party. They
Right.
show,
Exactly. Because the map basically lets them walk through the multiverse, and if you recall from the Absolute Power proper, that is the army that Amanda Waller is building throughout the multiverse to try to take that absolute power. So we see them all gathering now. The whole group. Lois and Satana and Clark and Doctor Light go back into the dark roads to gather some more people to help fight Amanda Waller. And we get this little thing that says, "But
but
wait,
wait, there's
there's
more.
more." And we get something that's very familiar to those of us who grew up in the '90s. We get basically the final. We get Doomsday breaking out of his containment, and
Bringing
he
it out.
and he is there now, and he'll be back next issue. And so, two good things happen next issue. We'll have Doomsday, but then we also will have the arrival of Dan Mora as the artist. along
Oh,
with Dr. William.
that's gonna be
With William.
nice.
Yes.
Dan
So
Mora on Doomsday. Let's
yeah,
go.
yeah. Um, so it kind of wrapped up the nice story. Again, I was very happy. We got through 3 issues of Superman and Zatanna without a single thing being read backwards. Um,
We're not out of the
but
gate just
we're not out of the woods yet though, because we still got Wonder Woman.
yeah, curveball there, guys. So yeah, where
Exactly.
Superman and Super Son kind of went back and gave detail and light on some things that were kind of not necessarily needed in the main body of the story, but give us a lot of great context to it. Wonder Woman is pushing the story forward for this week.
Yes, this was, I think, my favorite of the 3 stories so far. My
Yes.
favorite issue, including the backstory. I laughed so hard at the
Oh God,
backstory.
yeah. What a callback.
Yeah,
What a
exactly.
callback.
We start basically where the end of the last Absolute Power Task Force issue ended, which is basically Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman Diana being reunited, with basically Damien saying, "Oh, you people, all you do is kiss," type thing, like we got better things to do, that type of a thing.
Yeah,
Um,
once they're done making out, they realize we got to get a plan because we have a goal here. Diana and Damien were sent to Gamora to the Supermax to get everybody out, and now they've clicked up with Steve Trevor and they're formulating a plan between making out. And the plan is, distraction, draw the guards, release the prisoners, and catch up to help. And they get ready to enact said plan. And it was
correct.
pretty interesting because the way that they played it, I thought it was Damien going to put himself in danger,
Mhm.
distract the guards, and have to fight him off until the rest of help can arrive.
But it makes sense exactly, and she actually states exactly why it was her, basically, as we'll get to that in a second. So their plan is to basically dive through a window to kind of surprise them, to take control, and then to release everyone that's been captured. Basically, that's their big plan. So they go ahead and do that. They dive through. They manage to take people by surprise. Steve Trevor knocks some people around. Wonder Woman knocks some people around. Damien does as well. And they stumble upon Wonder Woman, and the guards basically say, "Hey, that's not really Wonder Woman. That's just a woman with a sword."
She's been
Now,
depowered. Get her.
exactly. Exactly, and so they do things. They do some things. They attack her. They shoot her. She actually does manage to block them, but as we'll find out, because she's not super powered anymore, she is struck by some of the bullets as well.
Yeah,
But
much like a person with a bulletproof vest, the bullet ain't going in you, but that ain't something you just keep standing up for.
right. And so she falls. Steve Trevor says, what's happening? She says, "Don't worry. The suit that I have will help to heal me." And he's like, "Why did you do that? You know you're not super powered anymore." And that's when she basically says, "When it was necessary to take a stand, so I took a stand. When it was
Yeah.
necessary to hold, that's when I hold. And when it was necessary that people be freed, that's when I freed people." So
And in that
um,
moment, the prisoners start coming out. You've got Power Girl, Booster Gold, Detective Chimp, Jay Garrett, all the heroes without powers are coming out and just overpowering the guards. And it was just super good moment. Tom King is just crushing every single issue of this, by the way.
Correct. And then the strange thing happens is that Damien basically goes and he writes a name on the ground, that basically is Zatanna backwards, Anataz. And then he says, someone says, "I don't get it," and that's when Damien, not even Zatanna, but Damien starts talking backwards. And before you know it, out of nowhere pops Zatanna. Zatanna pops out and basically says, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, exactly. Follow me. We're working to basically, go take down Amanda Waller and her people." And just as that's about to happen, Steve Trevor, Diana have one last kiss, and of course, Damien. Every time they kiss, he says basically gross. Um,
So it's great how this built on the Superman book. They showed us and confirmed to us how we got access to the dark roads, and in this, they just casually use them to get them out via the dark roads. Thought that
right,
was great.
right. And so again, the last scene that we have is basically Steve and Diana kissing with. Um, Damien basically poo-pooing it in the background. So, um, but then we go to the backup tale, which I absolutely loved. This was basically take the last three issues of Wonder Woman, and basically this is all now Damian telling you what happened in the last three issues of Wonder Woman from his perspective. And it's kind of funny because everything happens. He is the good guy. He is the magnanimous one. He is the one that's responsible for everything, while
And he's
kind of
humble,
exactly,
so
and he's
humble.
humble. Yeah, so humble, so humble. He has basically he has Boomerang basically saying I should have immediately conceded when I remember when I realized that Robin was the one who was against me. He offers to carry the bodies of people from Diana because it must be heavy for her, and I'll be more than happy to carry it. And she's Diana is lavishing praise over him, and it's like, oh, Batman must be so thrilled to have you as a partner. It's just so it's just written so well, and
Yeah, it's really funny. It's just a little Easter egg for those that read the past couple of issues. But God, it was funny.
yeah, we see the same thing. We see Diana and Steve basically kissing each other, but this time instead of saying gross, he's saying he has his hands clenched together like this with little hearts, and it's like how nice that
The
this is.
the
And
best part is Damien's telling this story to Trinity and to John Kent
mm,
as a pretext of her asking what her origin is. And he's so wrapped up in self that there is no origin story here. It's just him offhanded bragging about himself, telling tales from his perspective. It was hilarious.
Yeah, and then I laughed out loud at the ending where basically the ending is, Trinity says, let me put the lasso around him, and Jonathan is like, yeah, the gold lasso. It's Stevie telling the truth. She's like, no, the black one, the death one.
The death. How many times do I have to go over this? You cannot kill him. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, it was fun, and I know, I mean, Tom King has said it, and I think I mentioned before, he's said many times that he almost kind of enjoys writing the backup stories as much as he does the main
Mhm.
stories, and you can tell because this one was just hysterically funny. So next week, I believe we have the final issue of Task Force 7, and I believe we have Green Arrow, and
And
Origins
origins.
and
Yeah.
Origins as well. How do I know that? Because this man puts out something that lists his top comics every single week, and he has listed all three of those in his video. So go out and check that out. So, but that's going to be it for this edition of DC Comics Deep Dive. Another solid week. I don't think they've made a mistake so far in this. So I'm pretty happy with everything so far. So
Auditing dinosaur one time. That's it.
exactly. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to leave a comment, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you're alerted whenever we upload new content. But that's going to be it. As always, I am Paul. He is Mark,
But we are Legion.
and you are now leaving Sector 28.